Hey, what's up guys, it's Matt with the Movement System. In this video, we're gonna talk about the element of knee training that's often overlooked, and that is rotation. A lot of people think of the knee joint as just a hinge joint, but they're missing the rotational element, or that rotational element is off one way or another, leading to some pain on the inside or the outside of the knee. Oftentimes, this pain is even also associated with pain up at the hip or on the lower back on one side as well. So what we're gonna do is take a look at the rotation element of the knee, talk through it, explain how it works, so that you guys can figure out if you're lacking rotation one way or the other of the knee, so that you can fix your knee pain. Let's go ahead and dive into it. Okay, so I've worked with a lot of clients that have knee issues and that also have those issues manifest up and down the kinetic chain. So I'm gonna tell you guys about the two main issues that I see and the two main categories that clients fall into, so that you can figure out if you're one or the other. So let's start off by talking about the test that you can do to figure out if your knee rotation is good or not. Now, I'm gonna first talk about the clinical assessments that you would do as a physical therapist, but then I'm gonna give you some modifications so that way you can do these tests at home, even if you don't have someone else to help you or you don't have more of a trained eye with this. Okay, the first test that I want to talk about is the table test. And this is a really good test for testing the ability of the knee and the lower extremity to torsion. The way that you're gonna do this test is by stabilizing at the midfoot and then letting the knee fall out to the side. The most important thing to do here is to stabilize at the distal part of the foot, at the bottom of the foot, so that we can see where this rotation is coming from on one leg versus the other. Very often, clients that present with lower extremity issues on one side will have a really limited table test on one side, and then they'll have that knee fall way out to the side on the other side. As soon as the client sees that and they feel that like stiffness going to one side versus the other, they can kind of start to see that that might be an issue. Okay, so here's the modified version of the table test that you can do at home to check if your knee rotation is limited on one side or the other. What you're gonna do is you're gonna go to a wall, you're gonna put 4 fingers on the side of your foot and then put your foot up against that. And now we're gonna try to rotate that knee to touch it to the side, importantly, while keeping that forefoot stable. So if we see that as you're going to the side, you're lifting that big toe up, then that's an indication that you failed this test, you don't have good rotation of the leg. So if you can though, keep that big toe on the ground and a little bit bend the knee, touch the side of the knee to the wall, good, you passed this torsion test. You wanna do this on both sides and compare if one side feels stiffer than the other or one side can't touch the wall and the other one can touch the wall. All right, now let's talk about the second portion of testing knee rotation. The way we're gonna do this is by going into a 90-degree knee bend position, and then we're gonna look at how far the foot can rotate one way or the other. So what we're gonna do from here is we're gonna rotate the foot out, and then we're gonna rotate the foot in. And actually, Jonathan's a little bit stiff up, going onto the inside here. So what we wanna see is essentially how far from straight up and down we can get the foot out to the side while keeping the knee pointed straight up. So for Jonathan, out's not too bad. We have good tibial external rotation, but tibial internal rotation, a little bit stiffer there. But let's try the other side and see. So this side, same thing, we're gonna keep the knee pointed up, we're gonna keep the toes pointed up, and then we're gonna go out to the side, tibial external rotation, and then we're gonna see how the knee's rotating inward. Actually a little bit better on that side. This is another good test to do if you have a partner to actually test this on you. If you don't have a partner, this one's actually pretty hard to do by yourself. Maybe you just hold it up there and actively kind of point your toe in and point your toe out. But it's a good way to kind of clue in on where your deficits are. Is your knee stiff to rotation one way or the other? Okay, so now that we've done some testing and we've found out where you might be a little bit stiff, we want to actually go ahead and tell you what some of the patterns are that tend to be with inner knee pain, some of the patterns with outer knee pain, and how you can actually do something to fix it and then retest. So if you do these things right and you do the exercises we're going to show you, you should see a significant improvement, 10, 15 degrees, within about 15 or 20 minutes. All right, let's go ahead and talk about inner knee pain first. Inner knee pain tends to be associated with more of a valgus knee alignment where we have our femurs internally rotated, we have a bit of a valgus collapse to the knees, and then we even have pronation at the foot where the arch is collapsing in. This tends to be the position, the resting position at least, that a lot of people with inner knee pain find themselves in. This means that people with this type of alignment often lack the ability to do the opposite, to externally rotate at the hip, to lift the arch. So that's what we're gonna work on for the case of inner knee pain. All right, the first exercise to help with that inner knee pain and that alignment issue that we have is to work the hamstrings, because often we're internally rotated at the femur and we're valgus in our alignment. So we really want to work on the hamstrings of the back of the leg to help externally rotate and to strengthen some of this muscle group that is a little bit more lengthened. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna put the heels up on the edge of a box and we're gonna do a bridge. With this exercise, we wanna be directing force down into the box and activating the hamstrings. We can start with just a two-legged version of this where we're lifting both hips up, we're pushing the knees out slightly, and then we're activating those hamstrings and the glutes and holding. We can also work the hips up and down. As a progression, we can work into single leg with this exercise, and this is a really good one to do as an isometric, meaning holding for 10 seconds and then switching back and forth. So a good starting point might just be doing 10 or 15 repetitions with two legs, but over time, I want you to work to be able to do a minute straight, doing 10 seconds on the left, 10 seconds on the right, alternating back and forth. Just make sure you're keeping really good alignment with the knees, the hips, and the shoulders in a straight line. Don't let those hips sag down. If you're seeing that, you need to regress and go back to two legs. All right, and then the second exercise that we're gonna work on for the inner knee pain is actually externally rotating with a band around the knees. I like this Perform Better band. I'll have a link to it in the description below because it's the best one. It's really strong and thick, which is what we need for this exercise. And it's really important that we're keeping the feet on the ground. A lot of times you'll see people do this exercise like this, but then we don't really integrate our hip motion with our foot mechanics. It's really, really important that to actually fix this knee problem and improve the torsion tests that we tested, that we need to be able to keep the foot forward, toes pointed forward, and then learn to rotate that knee out. If all we do is step, we're not gonna change the way that our foot and our knee are interacting in that rotation relationship. So the way we wanna do this is starting out by just keeping our toes pointed forward. We're naturally probably gonna have that knee in alignment. We wanna do this without lifting up the big toe. Over time, we wanna work to the point where we can activate, shift to one leg, and then actually keep that activation all through one leg in that good alignment while tapping the other leg out to the side. We wanna work up to being able to do this for 30 seconds on one side and then switching to 30 seconds on the other side. Importantly, we wanna make sure that we're testing and retesting. When you're doing this, you should actually see an improvement in the test that we did earlier after doing these two exercises for a few minutes each. So go ahead and redo that table test or redo that test where you're trying to touch your kneecap to the side of the wall and see if it feels better, if it feels like it's rotating better, it's smoother. If so, you're probably doing the exercises right and you're on the right track to improving your gait mechanics, your alignment, and how your knee feels. All right, now let's talk about outer knee pain and some of the movement restrictions that we see with that. All right, with outer knee pain, what we tend to see is more of a varus knee alignment, where if you touch your feet all the way together, there's still space in between the knees. This tends to put a little bit more pressure towards the outside of the knee and the IT band because, again, we're directing force a little bit more towards the outside. This also tends to be associated with more rigid, high foot arches that don't move very well and accept load. So for someone with this type of alignment and this type of symptom, often what we're working on is being able to move the arch of the foot better, being able to actually find internal rotation at the hip, and being able to direct forces through the knee and rotate through the knee a little bit better that way. Let's talk about the two exercises that help us do that. Okay, so for our first exercise for this outer knee pain, what we're gonna do is just a standing mobilization. So what that means is we're gonna anchor the foot down to the ground. I like doing this one barefoot if we can, so we can really grip the ground and feel the inside of the foot. And then what we wanna see is that arch lift and then that arch collapse as we go in and out. So really what we're training is a lot of motion at the midfoot and then also rotation at the knee. So with this one, we wanna stand up, get a little bit of a knee bend, and then we're gonna rotate that knee out to the side, rotate that knee in. And a lot of times this will feel stiff the first time you're doing it. You just have to work it for a good minute or two, back and forth, to really get that to start to free up and improve that rotation at the knee joint. I can't emphasize enough how important this is for runners. This is something that was really, really stiff for me, my first Ironman race, and it ended up leading to me essentially limping for 6 miles at the end of the race, not doing very well and being in a lot of pain. And I really improved this a lot and was able to run a really strong finish for my next Ironman by doing this drill specifically. Hopefully, if you're dealing with the same type of issues, this is really helpful for you as well. All right, and then the second and final exercise for that outer knee pain is going to be a single leg RDL or Romanian deadlift, and we're gonna reach the opposite hand to the opposite knee. So this is where we're focusing on internal rotation of the hip, stretching out that posterior capsule and displacing or moving that hip backwards. We're gonna reach towards the opposite shin and we're gonna slide the fingers down the shin as we push the hips back. So that's gonna be a really good one for improving internal rotation of the hip, stretching that glute, and improving the alignment and the way the knee rotates. As a reminder, if you're doing these right, your motion should improve day one. I did a few of these exercises with a client yesterday, and this was the before of her table test, and this was the after of her table test. As you can see, there was a solid about 15-degree improvement in that knee rotation and that lower extremity torsion that we're seeing with the table test, which led to not only the knee, but also the hip and the kind of the band of tightness that she was having across the lower back, feeling a lot better. A lot of times, if you just go to a traditional PT clinic, I'm just gonna say weak glutes, glute bridges, single leg balance, a bunch of really easy exercises that don't really fix your problem. But I'm trying to share with this video some of the more complicated cases and help you problem solve some cases that may be more persistent for you. And if you happen to be a trainer or a coach or a physical therapist watching this video, you can learn my exact movement assessment system with our new course, Movement Assessment 101. That course goes over the exact assessments and the individual exercises that I program based on those assessment results for the entire body. The goal of that course is that by the end, you'll have one sheet that you can go through with your clients to find exactly what their movement restrictions are, give them a quick hitter that gets them 5, 10, 15 degrees of range of motion day one, and then also build strength to integrate that range of motion into their training. This is a system that we built up over years of understanding biomechanics and neuromuscular training, and you can learn from it in just a few hours. If you found this helpful, I'd really appreciate it if you liked the video and subscribe so I can see future videos. Thanks so much for watching, guys. We'll catch you in the next one. Take care.